Hi, and welcome to another episode of Women's Health Unwrapped. It's great to have you joining and have me in your ears, whatever it is you're doing today. So today we're focusing on habits. And I know I've done quite a few episodes recently on habits, but habits are literally everything. They make us who we are, and they're at the core of everything I do with individuals and with teams as well, because we really do need to nail our habits to live that healthier, happier life. And today's guest is an expert in how we make these habits happen. Mindi Huebner is an intuitive mindset mastery coach, and the mindset is at the core of my 5 pillars because it is literally key to any change we want to make, whether it's with our health or anything else. Mindi knows all about rewiring the brain, so we're going to explore why that is important, but also like how it's possible to actually rewire your brain, because I think so many of us have this belief that we're just how we are and we're stuck the way that we are, which often then self-sabotages us from even trying to put those new habits into place. So I'm excited to have you on the podcast, Mindi.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me as a guest. I know what a coveted experience that is. I know how you feel about your audience, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you and your expertise on. And as I said, habits are everything. It's just something that I think many of us take for granted, and often I kind of punish ourselves around as well when we've set out trying to make a change and put new habits in place and it hasn't happened. We just assume because we've decided we want the thing that habit to make it happen is going to, come about pretty quickly and easily, which isn't the case. But we know it's absolutely possible for anyone to break bad habits and build new ones, but it's all of that layering work underneath that we need to do with our brain and the rewiring that we'll dive into. So to kick us off, I'd love to ask you what your own most impactful healthy habit is in your toolkit.
Oh, that is... I have too many. Just pick one. I have too many because they're all... When I decide that I want to start something new, the most essential habit is connecting my conscious with my subconscious. So our subconscious thinks in pictures and sounds and feelings. It's not the logic part. I'm going to, work out 30 minutes a day. So I'm going to block the time off on my calendar and I'm going to do all the logical steps for that. Lots of times we set goals and we don't get them because we miss that essential linking of our conscious with our subconscious. So that is my best tool for any habit, getting those two things in alignment with each other.
Mm-hmm. And is there a technique that specifically works for you to do that? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I love what I call visioning, like vision casting on steroids. So it's mental rehearsal, and top athletes use this, top musicians use this. And this is not only seeing myself being the woman who is creating the new habit, it's seeing it, hearing it, tasting it, feeling it internally, externally, smelling it, all of the things. This is how we align our conscious with our subconscious. So we know what we want, and then we do pictures and sounds and feelings and get into the state of it. Our brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. So when we imagine ourselves starting the habit, being in the habit, doing the habit, honoring ourselves for creating the time and space for the habit, all the things, our brain's like, hey, we got this. And then when we go to do the habit, that some of that resistance is removed because, again, your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. So it's like, oh yeah, we can do this.
And for me, visioning was something that was really new when I came into this space and started some personal development work on myself before I knew I was going to be a health coach and set up a business. And it felt really bizarre and strange and uncomfortable to do it the first time. But it's something that I now use with clients, and when I've ran workshops and done it as a group, the emotions that come through are just so powerful. And for a lot of people, it's the first time that they have connected those two parts of their mind together. And the analogy or comparison you gave to athletes is a brilliant one that I think all of us can relate to, because you hear them talking about this. There's one in particular, I think the guy who won the 100 meter sprint at the Paris Olympics in the summer, he was asked at the end if it was a surprise that he'd won, because I think at one point he was actually last, and obviously the race is like 9 seconds, so his last was nanosecond. But he was asked that question, and he was a bit of a character, but he said, no, because I've ran this race and won this race hundreds of times. I have mentally rehearsed this thing happening in every scenario, starting off too slow, starting off too quick. He'd done it all over and over and over, tweaking different parameters within it. And that's what athletes do. And I think that's a great way for people to connect with what you're explaining there and how they can then use it.
And this is high performance, high achievers, right? Because that's who that's who wants to have these habits. Not that everyone doesn't want to have these habits. High performers, high achievers, we want to lock it in and just put it on lock and go and continue to show up that way. So I love the example of the sprinter. And what you talked about as well was next level mental rehearsal. So for us today, let's just mentally rehearse A to B. You have a new habit that you want, and we take the path of least resistance, and we, get up in the morning, 30 minutes early and meditate, like whatever it is the new habit is that you want. And there's nothing that happens in between. There's no barriers, there's no blocks. Just seeing ourselves. Alarm goes off. We're excited to greet the day. We've got our meditation space set up, or whatever that habit is. Seeing ourselves, we could take 10 seconds to do this. Seeing us complete the well-formed outcome, because that's the most essential thing. So the sprinter, he saw himself crossing the line. That was the well-formed outcome. Every single time he was crossing the line first. No matter how it started, no matter what happened in the middle, at the end, he was always crossing the line first. So we start with the end in mind. At the end, we're, meditated 5 minutes and we feel amazing and refreshed and ready for the day. So we reverse engineer that. See ourselves getting up, brushing our teeth, going to have a seat, putting on the music. Everything goes simple and easy. That's level 1 of mental rehearsal. Now, when you start to master that, you can then start to make assumptions about things that could get in the way, that you could still end up at the same place. And that is next level. That's turning up the dial. And I teach clients how to do that as well. And we like to start with, let's get from A to B. Let's see yourself like be the ball, right? Like see yourself being the person who, and how that feels. What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? Because I guarantee you that sprinter, he knew what his feet sounded like hitting the ground. He knew what his breathing sounded like, the sweat in his eye, like all of it. And that's how visceral we can get with it, because that truly connects our subconscious to our conscious.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I like the meditation example you used there, because the first thing I want to pick up on with that is that being a habit in itself, and people being really clear and I guess accurate in what they're positioning as a habit, because that also can be something that holds back success, because you set essentially a goal and make that the habit, like I'm going to get healthy. And you think, right, okay, I'm going to get healthy. And then it's just all of this stuff in there, and not appreciating that there are multiple factors that go into creating a healthy life. And each one of those could possibly have multiple habits that make that thing part of your reality. And so that's something that I want to ask you about is, the habit itself. How do you work with the clients you work with to help them get really clear on making the right thing, the habit that they then set off with a plan to build?
So this is a 2-part answer. And I want us to come back to the difference between mindset and identity. Mindset is our relationship with something. Identity is our repeated way of beingness and who we are being in accordance to the plan of the thing that we want. So I want to come back to that. And And then in creating that habit, knowing which one, getting that clarity, I use 7 keys with all my clients. And the first key is know what you want, but know what you want so clearly. Ask yourself 7 whys deep. Like, why do I want this habit? What, and healthy life, as you said, too broad,
Yeah.
right? Because how will you know if you're having a healthy life? So we can reverse engineer that. To begin my healthy life, I want to drink water. I want to drink 8 ounce glasses of water, right? I want to uptake my water X number of ounces. So knowing what I want and knowing it so clearly that it's so compelling that I'll show up more often than not as the person who is becoming and cultivating this habit. And so once we go 7 whys deep, then we're usually pretty clear. Because we can start with, I know what I don't want. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to think these thoughts about myself. I don't want this. Okay, what's the opposite side of that? And then we just go deep in there. And I will say that asking the question why, I love in the direction of our dreams and schemes and hopes and visions, right? That is a beautiful question to ask in the direction of what we want. It can really trip us up when we ask it in the question of why aren't we showing up as the person that we want to, because we'll instantly tell a story. If I say to you, why XYZ, the first words you're going to say are because, and then you're going to tell me a story. And there's no shade in the story. It's just how our brains work. It's habituated. We automatically go to telling the story why. So know what you want so clearly, so compellingly, you can dive into a swimming pool of it. You can see it, hear it, feel it, taste it, smell it. It's internal, it's external, everything. Like you're submerged in this. And then take some aligned action. Okay, you've said what you wanted. Now, what are some things I can do to get here to this outcome that I've said I wanted? And then check the data. And okay, let's talk about data. A women's health, we can let data mean some not nice things about us. When we are starting on a health journey, when we're in the middle of a health journey, data is just data. It is just telling us we're doing everything in the direction of what we want. We've got some room to improve in the direction of what we want. We get to make a radical change in the direction of what we want. That's it. That's all the data says, right? Like a scale doesn't determine who we are as human beings. The data, when you first start in a habit, does not determine your worth or value because that is already done, right? Like you couldn't be any more worthy or any more valuable. So checking that data and then being willing to change a relationship with time, with money, with food, with whatever it is, with movement, with sleep, with social media, if that's something that's keeping you from the things that you say that you want. So really being willing to change a relationship or a circumstance, vital in that as well. If you're not willing to change something, go back to knowing what you want because you don't want it bad enough.
Yeah.
If we're not willing to make some sacrifices, and when I say sacrifices, if we can't see more gains than losses in the direction that we're going, then we've got some limiting beliefs in there that we get to work on. Or what we said we wanted isn't really what we wanted. Because I don't know if this ever happens to you, but in business, since you're in business, there are goals for online business owners and for business owners, 5K months and 10K months and 6-figure businesses and all these things. So we can set goals based on what other people have said are the goals that we should set. And we can find ourselves out of alignment with those when we get to being willing to change and we're like, yeah, I don't really want to like give up sleep for the next 6 weeks in order to do XYZ. So that's like the 4 top steps. And you just keep going back to those keys all the time. 5, 6, and 7. 5 is for me showing up with joy and ease. Like this is showing up in excellence, and my level of excellence is there some joy and some ease in this? And if there's not, what's the story that I'm telling myself, or who am I being in it, right? What's my relationship with the thing, or what's my identity? What am I believing about it? 6 is gratitude, like just having some sort of practice in that can really scientifically proven, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It literally shifts our rewiring in our brain when we come
Mm.
from a foundation of gratitude, not spiritual bypassing, not pretending everything's rainbows and unicorns, none of that kind of stuff. And then 7 is alignment. Like, where am I in the alignment of becoming this person? So I find with my clients, and your people will know this even without knowing this is what was happening. When we are on the edge of becoming, of moving into that next level version of us, we have resistance. And in my experience, it's at a 6, 7, 8.5. That's amazing resistance. Lean in and keep going because you are on the edge of a breakthrough. If it's less than that, make a bigger habit. Like, do something harder for yourself. If there's little resistance, then you can amp that up. Like, you're stronger, right? And if it's a 9 or a 10, check in. Is this against your core values? Is this truly what you say you want? Where is the barrier here? Because we don't want to be at a 10 stress level wise when we're trying to create something new, and all the reasons why. Yeah, like the things happening in our body and our brain and all of that. So we really want to check in there. So those are the 7 keys that I use for every time for
Mm.
building habits with clients, so that they
Mm-hmm.
can know, is this for me, right? Is this something that I really want? And who can I be in showing up?
Mm. Yeah, that's brilliant. And there's a lot of overlap with my framework, which is WHEL, which is why, how, equip, and let. So similar sort of thing in, having the information, the data, but at the beginning, definitely being connected to that why and using that visioning tool as a way to really tap into how it's going to feel when you make that change and build that habit. And so just on the habit bit, because I want to move on to the mindset and identity, because I love that you've brought that up. Um, just to be really clear, the habit is the small thing. So the habit might be the meditating each day. It might be the drinking water. The habit is the thing. It could just be being kinder to yourself, might be the habit that you want to build. And so it's using your 7K framework then for all of those things. But I think where a lot of people go wrong is that they try to do lots of the things all at once under the umbrella of one habit of health sort of
Yes.
thing. That's the message, isn't it? It's being, well, anyone who's worked in corporate will know what a SMART goal is. It is being smart about it, isn't it?
Yes.
Making them specific,
Yes.
making them measurable, attainable, or achievable, something that is going to happen. Because when you are saying something like, even I'm going to eat healthy, that in itself is so big. And if you were scoping that out as a project plan, which is the kind of thing I do with my clients, that is a lot of different things and a lot of habits to gradually build to become a person who eats healthy, which leads us on to the identity piece, which is something I know you are really focusing on with your high performing clients.
Yes. Yes. So I love that you reminded us as well. SMART goals are a great starting point, and then we want to connect our subconscious, because that's the
Mm-hmm.
missing ingredient with a SMART goal. Because again, it's logically laid out, right? It's got the pieces that you need. Now add that connection of your subconscious on top of that. You will go from goal setter to goal getter. Like, that's going to be the difference maker for you. So I love that you brought that in, the SMART goal in there, as well as when we're creating a habit. It's going to start out as a ritual or a routine, right? We're being the person who puts the things in place, because it's not just going to automatically happen immediately for us. And so having the systems to set ourselves up for
Mm-hmm.
success as well is vital in having a habit that we can stay in and become the person who does this habitually. And so mindset and identity, our repeated way of beingness, like who we are being in accordance to that. We cycle through identities all the time, and it's really healthy. When we get stuck in an identity, or when we have conflicting identities, this is where we typically run into issues, barriers to what we want. When our identity feels like a box and not super expansive, where we've got room to move all around, this is where we get to check in and ask ourselves, about the limits that we're putting on who we get to be. So great example. I am a runner, and several years ago, I truly identified as a runner, so much so that when I got hurt and couldn't run anymore, it was really devastating. Like, who am I if I am not a runner? I love this. There are so many things about this that are in my personality. Like, who am I now? And so that might sound really dramatic to some people, unless they've really been tied to an identity and then all of a sudden don't have that identity anymore. That happens when we get super tied to our work identities, or when we have kids and then we become empty nesters and we don't know what to do with this, new way of being that we're supposed to move into. So I got to ask myself some really good questions. What is it about running that is so important to me? Why do I love it? And what is stopping me from allowing myself, right, to still be me without having running in there? And so finally I got to, I'm a woman who loves to move her body. This is what's essential to me. And this is what keeps me in the healthy direction. One of the things that keeps me caring for myself and my mental health and my physical health. And so I got to be a woman who runs when she can and does these other things to move her body. And so I brought new, exercising and all kinds of things into there. And that allowed my identity to expand instead of constrict me. So I'm a runner, and I just added the and on it, where before I had that conversation with myself, I couldn't. I didn't know that I needed the and, because I hadn't experienced what happens when I don't have this. So when our identities constrict, we want to tune in and say, okay, how do we get to really stretch this out? And one of the reasons that we have well-formed outcomes, goals are aims, direction, purpose. Outcome is what actually happens, right? So we have a goal of X and here is the outcome. Now, sometimes they match. Sometimes the outcome is even better. And sometimes it's didn't quite hit the mark. The magic is us becoming the humans who consistently go after what we want, or consistently take care of ourselves, or consistently. The outcome is a beautiful milestone. We get to fall in love with the magic of becoming. We don't want to food prep one time, right? If this is part of our healthy plan, we want to be food preppers. Big difference, right? Yeah. We don't want to walk one time, go for a walk. We want to be walkers in our identity, or whatever that looks like. We don't want to read one book. We want to be readers. So we want to really embody the identity of the person who cultivates the habits that keep us moving in the direction that we want. And that's the difference maker. Casting votes more often than not, our repeated way of beingness, casting those votes towards what it is that we say we want, more often than not, so that we are constantly becoming, because we're already her. We're just unlocking things as we cast more votes and get more clarity and take more aligned action and check the data and celebrate ourselves.
And that part of it's the mindset bit, which we'll move into, because what you've described there is, as I believe, and what I do in my coaching is explain that when you aren't becoming that person who values the health, who enjoys eating highly nutritious food or loves to walk outside, whatever that identity is you're seeking, when you aren't like trying to embody that and making that a big part of the change process, that's where it just doesn't become a habit. It doesn't flow. It's you always reminding yourself to do the thing and seeing it as a task, as a chore, or maybe even, a route, trying to embed it into a routine. But when you have that mindset shift of why you want this thing to be a part of your life and what it is that it's going to add in terms of value, you can then go on that different journey of, as you said, casting that vote for yourself to become that person. But that requires that mindset shift, that we haven't been taught at school. We're not brought up knowing this stuff. Nobody's educated us on it, have they? And so that's why, so many women go, right, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get fit and healthy. And then they go and try and do all the stuff, but see it as something that's just a temporary thing to, as you say, achieve the goal. And then it's like, job done. Whew, life goes back to normal. And then they're back to square one and feel really unhappy and wonder what they've done to reverse all of that hard work. So the mindset is really key, isn't it?
Yes. And remembering that that's our relationship with the thing. So our brain deletes, distorts, and generalizes based on our beliefs. So what are we believing about getting healthy? Because this is part of our relationship with it. What are we believing about what happens when we lose weight, or we add in exercise, or we food prep? Like, what is our relationship with that? That is where you'll see all the limiting beliefs. You'll see that your brain wants to keep you in the known. This is how your brain works. So the moment that you say, oh, I want to do these things, and then you start to show up in it, any limiting belief that you have around that will start to pop up, and you said it in the beginning, self-sabotage. And so we self-sabotage to give ourselves the illusion of control over our pain. This is I saw a quote that said that several years ago, and it's such a succinct way to say it. Well, I've tried this before. I tried getting healthy before. I've tried adding movement, whatever that is. I tried this before. And so we will just self-sabotage. We will drop the other shoe so it doesn't drop on us unbeknownst to us, right? We won't disappoint we'll just do it. We'll just end the thing, because then we're in control of the pain. Ha ha, right? This is a protection to us. The biggest, we self-sabotage in many, many ways. The root symptom that all the other self-sabotages come from is negative self-talk. And so what are we saying to ourselves, even unconsciously, subconsciously, about what we deserve, what we're worthy of, how we get to feel in our skin, what we get to believe when we look in the mirror, when we open the refrigerator, when we put on clothes, any of those types of things, when we pick up I have a granddaughter, when we pick up granddaughters, feeling strong, like those types of things. This is as well mindset. What is that relationship with that? And when that limiting belief comes up, there's a limiting belief in there that you're recognizing that you're either self-sabotaging or, well, some people deserve that, but I don't. If we start questioning, I was a health coach many years ago, and what I found with clients would be a really interesting spot that they would show up in is they would say that they wanted to lose weight, of course, for all the good reasons, right? And they would get scared. Who will I be when I'm not this person? I don't know how to be her. I know how to be this. This is our known zone. This is, again, where our brain keeps us in that safety, that love, quote unquote, that belonging. And it's not any of those things. It's just known. We know how to be her in there. So we know how to be the one that says X, Y, Z. We know how, and that is where the limiting beliefs come up as well. Like, what's the root of that? Well, do I deserve to be this new version of myself? Can I do it? Do I have the self-trust to do it? And here's where the mindset shifts come in. Either looking for proof when you've shown up for yourself in the past. In another way, I tell clients it doesn't matter if you've never taken a new health journey, goal, direction before in the past. Well, let's find another area in your life where you have shown up for yourself, so you can say to current self, look at past self, like, she showed up, she did it, like, we're her. So she already believes it. So let's start shifting this relationship. What meaning have we given to either being the woman who, what meaning have we given to this new identity, or what meaning have we given to these micro or macro habits that will set us up towards this new journey?
Mm. And that like self-sabotage and talk that we've got going on, that internal dialogue, which, as you said, is so powerful. It doesn't have to be said out loud. It's internally being heard by our mind and our brain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so as you used something along the lines of, you know, what you're saying to yourself when you put your clothes on or when you open the fridge, and that's very typical of a lot of women, is that that dialogue's running all of the time, and that can be very, very damaging in general to your overall mental and physical health, but also it's then sabotaging the thing that you're trying to change. And so, you know, I mentioned at the start, I think lots of women feel that they're just who they are. So in, you know, that example, maybe someone's putting on their clothes or opening the fridge to get something for a snack, and that dialogue saying to them, well, you're never going to lose weight. You're never going to buy anything smaller to wear because you just like food too much. That's who you are. You've always been this way. So how do we rewire our brain to shift the identity from thinking we're that woman to the
Yes.
woman who does know she is worth eating healthy for?
Well, the first thing we get to know is you are designed to create new neural pathways. You are designed with a growth mindset. What we fire together wires together. And so any neural pathways that you currently have, you can create better ones for yourself. You can create movement in the direction that you want. So you physically can. You are equipped. So I want everyone to know that
Yay.
there's no, yeah, like there's no, oh, her brain can do it, but mine can't. Not true. So you have the tools here to create that already. Absolutely. One of the ways, again, of rewiring your brain is mental rehearsal. So if you are in the habit of opening the refrigerator and saying not nice things to yourself, right? Mentally rehearse what you want to say when you open up the refrigerator. Mentally rehearse the questions that you'd like to ask yourself. See yourself. So the well-formed outcome is when I open the refrigerator, number one, I say kind or neutral things to myself. Nothing disempowering. So either neutral or empowering. Here's part of the well-formed outcome. And the second thing is I ask myself really powerful questions when I open the refrigerator, like, am I really hungry? what do I want? Why am I in here as in relation to what I say I want, right? What is causing me to open the refrigerator? So having that well-formed outcome, okay, I'm going to be neutral or empowered, and I'm going to ask these three super good questions to myself, knowing that before you even walk to the refrigerator. So you mentally rehearse it. Okay, am I hungry? On a scale of 1 to 10, like what? And I'm sure you teach your clients like hunger scales and all those things to check in, right? And so, I am currently about a 7.5. I haven't had breakfast yet. So I'm like, well, I'm about 7.5 right now. So yeah, what would I like? Like, so I am hungry. Yay. Now let's find something XYZ. Like, what better question? How is this going to serve me for the day? When's the next time I'm going to be able to eat? Okay. Does this have enough fiber? Does it have, like, whatever the questions are that we're asking, the quality of the questions determines the quality of our life. So mentally rehearse that, but have a plan before you open the fridge and see yourself. Be kind to yourself. You are creating new neural pathways. You are rewiring that. You are changing your relationship, your mindset, your relationship with what happens when you open the refrigerator. And it gets to start as small as that. Because imagine, little hinges swing big gates. If we change the way we talk to ourselves and the questions that we ask when we open the refrigerator or open the cabinet, the pantry, right? If we just start there, imagine that springboard then that will shift for us. When we change our relationship with what's in the refrigerator and who we get to be in that relationship by choosing more often than not all the time, no one's perfect, right? More often than not, to be kinder and no shoulding on ourselves. No, like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Should is a could with shame smeared on it, and shame will not get us anywhere. We cannot move forward from shame or guilt. Like, they stop us and we just stay in that spiral. So instead, we get to say to ourselves, from now on, in the future, next time, I'm going to ask a better question. I'm going to take 3 deep breaths first. I'm going to, like, whatever that is. In the future, I will, and then ask this question instead. I will tap before I go to the fridge when I know I'm not hungry, like whatever that looks like. It's being able to move our attention, because the habit is the habit, the current habit that you're in. And so you get to switch that relationship with what that thing is, which is your mindset around it. Was that helpful? I
Yeah,
talked a lot.
definitely. You're given so much value. I could listen to you all day.
Oh.
This is my favorite part. I mean, I
Mm.
love all of the detail on the individual health and wellness pillars, but the mindset piece and the habits is just so, I just find it fascinating as humans what we're capable of doing. Something I was thinking of as you were sharing that, Mindy, is if someone's a regular listener, I think hopefully they're connecting with a bit of a theme as we've been talking about similar topics on awareness, that's self-awareness. What
Mm.
you were describing there needs you to be aware of, oh, that time I went to the fridge and I didn't even realize, but I was running that, horrible attitude towards myself like I normally do. And so, as you said, catching it to then be able to think about what you will do differently next time in the future. How are you going to shift that mindset? And that's a big part of making sustainable change, is being really aware. And you touched on the piece before, and actually I've seen you talk about this on your Instagram as well, of celebrating yourself. That's again a big part of what I do. Like,
Huge.
we have to recognize, even if it's just something, as simple as you made one healthy dinner in that week, even though the goal was to make 3, for example, you still celebrate that. That isn't a failure, because, that whole process of our brain rewiring and knowing that we have the capability, that we are able to do that, that we have achieved it, and telling ourselves that story instead of, well, I didn't do it 3 times, so I'm rubbish, is just so much more empowering, isn't it?
So much more. And I'm so glad you brought us back around to celebrating as well. Awareness. When you, which I'm sure you experience, when you start doing mindset work, your level of awareness skyrockets. And all of a sudden, because your RAS is shifting and your beliefs are shifting. So remember, we delete, distort, and generalize based on our beliefs. Well, the moment that we start tweaking those and going, maybe I could, like, what if, and we start moving in that direction, that starts shifting, that filter starts changing, and it starts deleting, distorting, and generalizing based on this expanded belief of maybe and what if. And your RAS, your reticular activating system, this, in very simple terms, brings us what we anticipate and expect.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment we start saying to ourselves, hey, like, we're going to say nice things to ourselves when we open the fridge, and we're going to have 80% really high nutrient choices in there, so that we are more often than not choosing the thing that supports us in who we want to be and how we want to feel. And doing that for ourselves, celebrating that, but we will have this new level of awareness in that. And celebrations are so key. This builds our self-confidence, this builds our self-esteem, this builds our self-trust. When we celebrate how we showed up, how we did the thing, our brain is like Velcro for negativity and Teflon for positivity.
Yeah.
When we don't sit in it, we just move on. Like, we will happily sit in the negative. We will happily sit in the negative. It's just the way our brain is wired. So again, no shaming yourself in that. You're working on changing that just by being a listener to this podcast. And so when you find yourself in that, no, it is how you are wired, and you are changing it. So you're changing it to see more of the celebration, see more of the positive, sit in more of the joy, as opposed to sitting in the unjoy. And that is awareness and celebrations are huge, like muscle flexing on the way to what you want, because you're building your self-confidence, your self-esteem. You're building that inner knowing that look at past self, she showed up. So future self says, I can count on you. I can count on you to do this more often than not.
And if you aren't watching, Mindy was just flexing her muscles there. But that word muscle, that's really key to think about, because what you are doing is building a muscle. In the same way that if you went to the gym and you were lifting some dumbbells to build your biceps, it is going to take time, but every time you lift that dumbbell, you are changing that muscle and improving it. And that's exactly what you're doing with any new habit you're working on building. You're creating a muscle so that it becomes formed, it's built, it's strong, it can be implemented when the cue's given, and it becomes that part of you. And so how you've just described that is brilliant. And I think people will resonate, with that analogy of you're building that muscle. It's repetition, consistency. And as you say, the more you become aware, the more you celebrate, the more you recognize, the more you catch things when they aren't how you planned them or wanted them to be, the more your mind is attached to that outcome that you've got in your vision and can make it happen. So,
Exactly.
yeah. And I think that the key message, and I love the whole energy you have around this, is that anyone can do this. We are all on an even playing field. It's not like that 100-meter sprinter and we can all compete with him, because I know I definitely would never be a 100-meter sprinter. Whereas we can all build new habits and rewire those limiting beliefs to change what we think about. It's not just ourselves, it's other things in the world. We all have these limiting beliefs. That's how we work as humans, isn't it? So it's, just, I think, a real positive message that you can change. Your brain is able. And I mean, years ago, they used to say that as we aged, we couldn't really change. But now the evidence is there that you could be in your 90s and you're still rewiring your brain. It would happen slower, and depends how healthy you are as to how quickly. But they have seen on brain scans, that it changes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You touched on limiting beliefs as well. And I want to let everyone know a limiting belief masquerades as a protection. A limiting belief is exactly what it sounds like. It's a belief that limits you from being, doing, having what it is that you deserve and desire. And they start as protections. Typically they come up. So whatever that limiting belief is in our minds, it's protecting us from something. So many of us have a fear of success or a fear of failure. And both of those fears are the limiting belief that if I don't do the thing, then I can't fail. Right. Or if I, right, the fear of success is, if I do this one thing well, then what is the expectation going to be on me for continuing to do these things well? They masquerade as protections. And so when a limiting belief comes up, I would invite your audience to ask themselves, like, what is this protecting me from? Because it's usually protecting you from the success that you want. Like, who would I be without this belief? What's a more empowering belief that I could think right now? What's a better meaning? Meaning is everything for us, right? It's our relationship. What's a better meaning I could give to this that would allow me to move forward instead of feeling stuck?
And you can do this stuff on your own. It is absolutely possible to work on this, to build new habits, make the changes you want happen on your own. But this is why a lot of people choose to work with a coach, because we guide you through this. And often what I find is it's somebody putting aside that space, that time, that energy for themselves to think about this stuff, to get it out, and to be asked these questions by a coach, and to think about it, because you can do this yourself, but how our lives are mean that most of us don't give ourselves that space. And it does need, as we're saying, that awareness to be pausing and saying, okay, why is this coming up? Maybe it's something like how perhaps you snap at your partner, your husband, and you think, why do I always do that when X happens? And it's just in the moment catching that. But I encourage you to give it a go. Maybe think of one thing that we all know ourselves well. Think of that one thing that comes up that keeps standing in your way. So that brings us to wrapping up, Mindi. And I love to give 3 tips that people can use themselves to start with simple steps to build a new habit. And I usually focus on the habit area that someone I'm talking to is an expert in. Since you're the habit expert, like 3 simple steps to build any new habit. I know you've given lots of great tips, but where could someone start, like really easily themselves?
Yeah, I think that the first part is asking that why. Like, so when you think there's a habit that you want, why? 7
Yeah.
whys deep is really vital, so that you also don't disappoint yourself. Again, creating a habit based on what someone else thinks should happen is a great way to set ourselves up for disappointment. And so the first question is why, and go 7 whys deep. And I also like to ask the question, in sustaining that habit, well, who am I being and who do I want to be? When I'm building that awareness of, okay, I'd like this new habit. Who am I being currently? Who do I want to be? Sometimes I'm being exactly who I want to be. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'll change then and go, oh, well, this will allow me to move in the direction of her. And sometimes we go, yeah, I'm not being her, and I'm a human. And I'm
Mm.
going to sit here for a minute or a day or whatever. That's it's it's so essential to ditch any sort of perfection. This is the long game. We never get it done. We are constantly becoming and fine-tuning and plateauing, and then fine-tuning, and then growing. And so this is part of being a human that is perfectly enough and gets to evolve. You get to hold 2 truths. You are enough, you get to evolve, and creating better habits is how you do that.
Fantastic. So knowing your why, what was the second one?
Asking, who am I
Oh,
being?
who are you
Who do
being?
I want to be?
And
And
then dropping the
raising,
perfection.
yes, like
Yeah.
raising that level of
Mm-hmm.
awareness on, this is human. Like, I'm being human right
Mm.
now. I'm not going for perfection. I'm going more often than not,
Mm-hmm.
80/20, whatever that looks like. If you're doing a habit, if you would like to do a habit 3 times a day and you're doing it 1.5 to 2 times, you're knocking it out of the park already. Right? Like more often than not. If you're doing it 20 times a week and you've got 11 times, you're doing it more often than not. So really, like, honoring yourself in that.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And I'm going to ask you one final question. Just because I'm interested to see how you answer this. I'm often asked this. You probably know what it's going to be.
I don't. I'm like,
Oh well, it's like that $64 million question. How long does it take to build a new
oh,
habit?
this is a great question, right? Okay, so neuroscience tells us that a new neural pathway, which we will say is a new habit, right? So here we've got the current habit is here. 67 days of repeated beingness of the new habit. So practicing the habit, 67 days, the neural pathways are even. After 67 days, this one goes higher, the new one, and this one starts to crumble away, or you pay less attention to it, all those kinds of things. So in neuroplasticity, 67 days is the minimum. This is when you are like locking that in. Now, I know, for some people, creating a new habit, depending on the habit, can be very simple. It might take a couple days to implement something in, and that's that. I saw a study, I think it was Jim Quick, but I'm not positive if it was him or not, where he said, brush your teeth with your left hand.
Yeah.
That he did it for a year and it was never a habit. because
Mm.
he would automatically go with his right hand because he's right-handed, and I'm very much paraphrasing that, so please nobody come at me if I didn't get that 100% right. And so knowing that each habit completely different,
Yeah.
like what's your relationship with it? Who are you being? How many reminders are you giving yourself? How much space are you giving yourself? All those things. Was that is that
Yeah,
a
no,
good answer?
I love, yeah, I love that. And I use the same principle actually, in that it very, very much depends on what the habit is, where you are with it already, how easy it is. You know, like, I don't know, say you wanted to stop smoking, but everyone you work with and who you were friends with at work and spend time with smokes, that's going to take you a lot longer. I know that's breaking a habit, but just an easy analogy, like, because you're surrounded by people who are smokers. And so if you're, for example, trying to eat healthy, but in your household all they ever eat are crisps and biscuits, then it's probably going to take you a lot longer to build that habit than someone who perhaps lives with a person who's already got a pretty nutritious diet in place. So yeah, there's lots and lots of things come in the mix. But I love that because habits is a bit of a noisy topic, and you hear people saying it takes 21 days to build a new habit, or it takes 185 days, or whatever. But yeah, it really, really does depend. And for me, I like really believe, and it sounds like you're aligned on this, that your why will be a big factor in that, because I've tried to start many new habits. Last year was the cold showering and it didn't work at all. However, later in the year, I revisited it and have built it as a habit. But that's because I got clear on the why. Whereas the first time around at the start of 2023, I just knew it was good for you and thought, right, let's have a cold shower at the end of every morning shower. And it didn't happen because I just hadn't connected to why it mattered. So I think, yeah, that it's a whole process, and then putting that system into place to build it over however long it takes. Yeah.
And your why, as you connect with that why, you are connecting with your new identity as well. So I love that you said quit smoking, and yes, that's breaking a habit. However, okay, so the habit that you're creating is becoming a non-smoker, right? And that's a repeated way of beingness. And so I quit smoking 30 years ago, maybe. Like 29 or 30 years ago. And it took a couple times because I worked with people who smoked, and I carpooled with people who smoked. And the container was extremely difficult because I would go for so many days and then I couldn't take it anymore, right? Everyone was smoking. When I finally locked in the habit, I realized that I also had switched my identity. I no longer believed I was a smoker. So I no longer believe I'm strictly a crisps and biscuits eater, right? I flipped that to I'm a non-smoker. And non-smokers don't wake up in the morning and think, I wonder if I'll smoke today.
Yeah.
That's how you tie your identity into it as well.
Oh, exactly. Brilliant. So if anyone wants to find out more, Mindi, I'll put everything into the show notes, but just let them know where is the best place to connect and get more inspiration and help on their habit journey.
Yeah, come hit me up on Instagram. I'm Mindi Huebner everywhere. So whatever platform you're on, I'm sure I'm there, but I like Instagram. I've spent some time there, and like you said, talk about lots of things that will fit right in line with what they're learning from you. So it'd be a good companion, right?
Oh, fantastic. And you also have a free is it a free meditation guide that can help with some of this mindset shift as well? I
It
can pop a
is,
link to
yes,
that.
it
Yeah.
is a free brain prime to help you mentally rehearse. So I'm in what we talked about, all the mental rehearsal and all the gains that come from that, the rewiring that happens. Here's a guided one so you don't have to
Oh.
like guess what to do or what to think. This is a fabulous tool to use to start rewiring your brain right now.
Oh, amazing. Definitely go and download that then, because yeah, it's very powerful to do if you haven't tried it before. So thank you massively for your time and all of your energy and wisdom. I think, we've really inspired whoever's listening to get started on those healthier habits.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's been
Yeah.
such a pleasure.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.